Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm Nick McDaniel. He's Myron Fancher. How the heck are you, buddy?
Good, good. I got my glasses on. I got my John Nada Funko Pop with his shotgun. I got my Rowdy Roddy Piper bubblegum soda. My son got me that. I'm ready to do this. Man, I haven't been this excited to do a show in a while, Nick.
Man,
You
I
are
hope
human. I can tell through here. Okay,
yes,
never
you
mind.
can
Okay.
see me through the camera. Yeah,
Okay.
look, I know a lot of people, and we look, by the way, we would love your feedback, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. I'm really liking the new format where it's changing it up a little bit. It's not so news driven and digging through stories every week. Yeah, we still chat about the big stuff of the week every week, before we get started, but I'm liking the what ifs, the real wrestling stuff and all that kind of stuff, just mixing it up a little bit. And listen, we always tell you, like, if you were a member of our Patreon page, the reason why it's so important is that that's where you can kind of have a lot of say in what we're kind of doing. You can kind of give us directly feedback, message us on there, comments on there. Because, look, we're absolutely listening, not just to the people on YouTube, but the Patreon members at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. And plus, you do, like, look, we did a complete restructure this past week on kind of the tiers of Patreon. We didn't really take anything away from you. But essentially the way it works is, look, if you're a free member, you get the Georgia, Wrestling Spotlight. You get that every week. That is a free thing that will not change. You get the indie schedule where we're telling you where all the shows are nationwide, thanks to, Phil Stamper's list that he puts out every week. Total credit to him. He compiles a massive list. You get the show notes, obviously, as well. We talked about that. But at the $5 level, you get all the weekly shows. You get those early access to them before everybody else, and all the stuff with the dollar level. The $10 level, hey, we've upped it. You get access to all the shows that we put out. When we do interviews and the specials, you'll get access to those early as well. Plus, this week we added the Tapped Out collectibles. We added the new level where at $10 level, every month you will get an exclusive digital comic book cover with the wrestler who we're kind of partnering with on a monthly basis. And look, I'll go ahead and spoil it. Brady Booker is month 1. He's going to be the first one that we put out here in a couple weeks. And we have already lined up number 2, but we're maybe going to tease him later on down the road. I think I did tell it already on the other show. So Hunter James will be month 2. So that's why you want to sign up, because look, at the $10 level, the comic book covers are going to be the same for the $10 and $20, but the price points, the $10 level will have $10 on it, because the $25 level will be autographed on the digital copy, as well as you will get a physical 8x10 copy of that cover signed by the wrestler themselves. So you're going to actually get an autographed copy from that wrestler of that cover at the $25 level. So we've stacked it up trying to create that value along the way. So
I have a question now.
yes.
Somebody was asking on Facebook. They posted, what shows are running on X Day? What shows? And I posted, go to the Tapped Out Pod Patreon. Here's the link. Now, what would it cost that person to know what shows, indie shows, are running on what date all across the country, whenever? How much?
Oh, I said it. That's the free one. That's a free one. That is
That's
on the free.
I told her, no charge. That costs you $0 a month, 12 months in a year, 12 times 0, still 0. Find out where all the independent shows in the country are. And not have to post on Facebook, who's running on this date? Man, you can't get any better than that.
Yeah, so we've created value at every tier, even the free. So the frees to the 25, there's a value. I mean, because look, if you get an autographed copy of a photo, what's that going to run you at a table? 10, 15 bucks, 20 bucks, depending on who it is.
I buy a lot of autographed 8x10s, which I've got to get back on the wall now that the wall's finished. And the prices they're going for are ridiculous these days. And you're getting them out to people in the tier on top of all of this. It's a perk.
That's the plan. Yeah, it's a perk. And it'll be an exclusive design. These, by the way, will not be available on their tables. These are exclusive just through the Patreon. Like I said, I worked it out with a couple, some partnerships with them. So it's going to be something that cover will only be exclusive on Patreon, not at their merch tables even. They will have cool ones, promise you. The people that are doing it, they will have cool ones on their table, but it will not be that cover. So it's really, really exciting. everything going on. We appreciate you guys' support. Make sure you're doing it on tappedoutpod.com, which is our YouTube channel, liking the pages, subscribing, turning those little notifications on, so every time we get the Tapped In or Tapped Out show to you, boom, you'll get notifications. That's But look, man, before we run long, before we get to the real wrestling, we are going to cover real wrestling. This week's episode, we're discussing They Live, starring Roddy Piper, made by John Carpenter. Going to dive into a whole lot of stuff. Because this was a movie, I knew you were a fan, which was why I was like, okay, this will be a good one to dive right into. And but before we do that, a little bit of WrestleMania talk. By the way, let's tease everybody. Next week will be the big WrestleMania show. We're going to go into the matches because by time recording, we should know pretty much all of the matches at that point. Yeah, there'll be a couple probably said on SmackDown that we may not know, but we'll probably at least know rumored that those matches are going to happen or whatever. So next week, we're going to get into a little bit of predictions, a little bit of like what we think going in and out and all that kind of stuff. But before we do that, we're going to talk a couple things.
I saw the promo. Triple H is an alien, Nick. Because every time they get on TV and start talking, I see, obey, watch WrestleMania, listen to this promo. That's what I see in my head because these promos are killing it, man. Matches I didn't give two shits about. And now all of a sudden, I'm in the Intercontinental Championship match. Super interested in that now.
Yeah,
more interested in the Jey Uso and Gunther match. That's the one I'm really looking forward to, and all the drama is on the CM Punk match. Oh,
I mean, look, there's drama there. My question: so we watched the promo with Punk, Rollins, and Roman on SmackDown specifically, because of course, we're not going to get Roman on two shows back to back, right? On Raw, so. As I sat there and watched this promo of the Paul Heyman and Punk announced what the favor he was asking for about him in his corner, and I watched Roman's behavior, and it kind of led like, is Roman a babyface or a heel? Like, and then asked, is Seth Rollins a babyface or a heel? Is CM Punk a babyface or a heel?
No clue. This is like one of them Sergio Leone westerns, where the good guy is not really that good a guy, and you might understand the bad guy at times, and you're not really, just kind of anti-heroes. Seth was a huge anti-hero last night. It was like, okay, I don't understand. And then all of a sudden I understood. But when he slapped Paul, it's like, how much is this worth to you? Are you worth this much to them? Are you worth... If we were to measure how much I fast forward during a show, last night's Raw, very little fast forwarding. Oh, and since they've got back to the continental U.S., the commercials have gone away again.
Nah, that's different. On your replay watch, you mean? Or?
Yes. On my YouTube, on my Netflix replay, when they've got back to the continental U.S., the commercials are gone. So I'll have to figure out that. But what has been your favorite promo so far?
Look, I really like the work that as crazy as it sounds, I actually really like the Roman, Seth, and Punk stuff. I think that leading up to that one, that's the one that they've done the best work on, in my opinion. The Cody Cena thing still is leaving, like, I need the why on Rock. Like, I feel like that's, and I get it. I'm like, hey, you're not being patient. So I'm telling myself that, but I'm like, okay, we're pretty close and we still don't even know the why. I don't feel like. Yeah, because if Rock doesn't show up until Mania, why was The Rock included in it at all?
That's leaving a big gaping hole about sell your soul and all that. All those weird, creepy promos The Rock did and nothing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. So I think, and it led me to the question was like, I'm really enjoying the one that I'm probably most confused who's supposed to be the babyface and who's supposed to be the heel. And it asked the question that, I would say, like, are they even doing that anymore? Like, or are they just like, hey, this is these characters and just pick who you like?
I think babyface and heel is gone the place of the way the brand split. It's more like the brand smear. I think instead of people being good and bad, they're more shades of gray at times. The essential John Cena, the greatest babyface to ever live, is a heel now, but
Yeah.
people are still cheering him.
That's a fan problem. I think that's not a product problem. That's John Cena being cheered is like, hey, we just respect him and we love him so much. Blah 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 blah. I still think he's the heel and he's getting that react. He is trying to be a heel. My confusion with those other ones is like they're literally like from week to week almost like crossing back and forth the line of their behaviors but it's like what happened when Roman came back, like he was contrite, like he believed, like, okay, maybe I messed up and I got too power hungry. He made up with Jay. You know what I mean? Like they started making up whatever. And now like the behaviors towards Paul on SmackDown was almost old school tribal chief where like,
he went,
you need to dry up your tears and you need to tell him you're, no, or whatever. Like, okay, that doesn't seem like where they were just not too long ago with Roman. It's like, is he drifting right back into the tribal chief? And again, I ain't got a problem with that.
No,
I'm just saying if that's where we are, it doesn't really make him a heel. So.
Are they response booking on this stuff? Are they waiting to go out there and see how it's responded to and then telling them what to do? Are they prepared? I don't know. The only promo that's supposed to have been a shoot promo probably is the biggest work ever, and that's the Charlotte and Tiffany Stratton promo, which is a work, people.
You think so? You think that's a work?
It's a massive work that they're portraying like a shoot to draw attention. If they replay any of that promo on SmackDown Friday night or anytime before WrestleMania, you'll know it's real.
Well, it's the because here's what the funny thing is. The conspiracy theory goes into how appropriate for this episode, right? The conspiracy theory would be, well, they edited out the stuff that they crossed the line with, and therefore it has to be like, yeah, but if Triple H was booking it that way, wouldn't he do that to make you think? Like he would edit those out and say like, well, they crossed the line. They've both been punished and, blah, blah, blah. It's okay. So, but if it was a work, he would do that to make you believe that.
They said Gunther was punished for what he did on Monday Night Raw last week. Okay. But this week on Monday Night Raw, they did a cinematic reproduction of the entire scene, the blood wiping, all the beating up of Jimmy, the zip tying. Okay. The act that was out of control was turned into a cinematic masterpiece. So it's wrestling. Even bad news makes people look.
I'm with you. There's a part of me that just goes like, look, man, I just think this is all story, and everybody's like, oh, you just got hooked and you bought. But
the worst news.
Let's get to it because that's where I was going to go next. Before we move on to the movie, again, here's the problem. There's obviously a chunk of the population there that believes this could be a work, right? But I don't believe this one is. Kevin Owens apparently is going to have some type of a neck surgery, and like, look, they're talking possibly 2 to 5 years. I'm like, this is, and he's out for the match. By the way, they announced today who they think is opponent. Randy Orton's new. I'm gonna get there. Kevin Owens, like, terrible luck getting the. I'm gonna tease you to make you wait for it. 2 to 5 years is a lot. That's the Daniel Bryan thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's literally like. Could it be a Big E type scenario? Does he come back? I mean, who knows?
What's Sami Zayn going to do?
It just sucks across the board, man. And I know he had grown on you over the last 6 months. Well,
his heel work has just grown on me.
Yeah,
and the storyline has grown on me. But come on, tell me who the opponent is.
So the latest rumor that hit out today is that Aleister Black would be debuting and be Randy's opponent. So. Look, you got to forget. Now, look, I don't know, man. Triple H was a massive, proponent for Aleister Black. He had a huge. So,
better turn on those voices and make sure he's the one making the voices. Do some kind of storyline like that. Got into Randy's head really quickly. If you're going to make that work, make it Nick Aldis. I mean, Aldis can go. I don't know. So,
that's the one that I went with. I thought that how cool would that be because he RKO'd him. Does they not like step into the ring with it? That would be cool. I'm all for it, dude. I'm a huge fan of that one. I agree with you. But look, it sucks for Kevin Owens in general, man. We hate to hear that. I mean, but It's wrestling. That stuff happens, unfortunately. And we wish him the best, and hopefully the surgery goes well and a speedy recovery. Let's hope that 2 to 5 year window, if that is an accurate reporting, that it's closer to the 2 and not the 5. That's, know.
Amen.
Well, man, let's get to what everybody's here for. We're going to dive right into the real wrestling episode. This week, like I said, we're covering They Live, John Carpenter's 1988 classic, cult classic, if you will. So a little bit of background on it. First and foremost, it was released on November the 4th, 1988. Budget on the movie was $3 million. Pretty big for back. I mean, $3 million. It wasn't, huge, whatever.
88 money.
88 money. Yeah, we'll do that inflation calculator. 13 million was what it did at the box office. So you kind of have to make a case for. I'm a big Kevin Smith guy, and I joke about things like this when they say Kevin Smith will always have a job making movies because he can make a movie for $6 million that'll make $25 million. He's like, you're never gonna lose money on a Kevin Smith movie, but you're never gonna have like a $250 million movie either.
Yeah.
So it's a very safe bet, pretty much. It did open, believe it or not, at number 1 at the box office. I would attribute that huge to, by the way, the wrestling fan base probably turning out to seeing.
After WrestleMania 3, where Piper had just retired to go to be acting, he still had the buzz from the wrestling business. He was still a larger than life character in a Cyndi Lauper music video. What do you do? What do you do? I mean, this is so insane. And we were sophomores in high school at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And you think about it. I got it on VHS and watched it at home. I thought it was great because I thought it was a science fiction movie. I didn't know anything about the backstory. I lived in 1988 when things weren't like they are now. It was different.
Listen, most of us, and this is what I was talking about with the wrestling fan piece of it, we didn't really care. It was like Roddy Piper was in a movie.
Yes, and that's why I watched it.
Yeah, that's exactly why pretty much all of us watched it. Like I highly, by the way, attribute like all of the guys that have gone on to do, the John Cena's, the Rocks, or whatever. Like their early movies they're a pretty safe bet if you can make the budget low enough because the wrestling fan base is going to turn out to support it to try to help them, in the long run. But look, but unfortunately, it was mixed reviews. I mean, some people thought it was really cool, had a cool message on it. Look, we're not going to get into the political messages. It's so super deep, but it's kind of got a lot of that with it. But then again, some people looked at it and was like, hey, Piper wasn't, they like some of the acting was poor. By the way, he's not the weakest one in this movie. But some of the, it was pretty heavy handed. It was, I mean, lot of social political commentary kind of layered into this thing.
But at 52 instead of 16, 52-year-old Myron watched it after having a few things and reading the notes and going through Google searches and YouTube. It scared the hell out of me.
It's a little creepy. Yeah. I mean, but look, back then, a lot of us kind of, again, we knew a wrestler was going to get pretty much what it was considered a B movie at the time. That's what a lot of people saw it was. So look, the studio had a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out how to market the thing. And luckily they just laid into Roddy Piper's a wrestler. Let's kind of push it out there, So, but look, I think, I get it. It did 13 million at the box office. It had a good enough run to at least get their money back. But over time, this movie, like I jokingly asked this question, like look, we totally tell people we completely. This version of our podcast spawned off of one of my favorite podcasts, the Rewatchables. By the way, this will never be on the Rewatchables, just so you're aware. They Live will not be on the Rewatchables. But for us, what constitutes a movie that is rewatchable? It's, look, it's on home video. We lived through this movie. Like anytime it's on cable, if it's you had the VHS, yeah.
I own a digital copy. I bought it without even watching it. I mean, I bought it to watch one day. I bought it to have how do you buy a digital copy to have? I don't know, but I did for this one because it was a Rowdy Roddy Piper movie. John Carpenter was a huge Roddy Piper fan. This is a cultural icon from my childhood that I just now realized was a giant social commentary piece.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's look, it's one of the best lines ever, and we're gonna. By the way, this thing will be repeated a million times at this point. The bubblegum line has absolutely become something that just tons of people have used over the years. The fight scene, we're really going to dive into that at some point. Not now, because there's a couple categories that I think's going to be mentioned or whatever. And by the way, at the time, and it was a difficult decision casting Roddy, which we'll get into some of the casting stuff or whatever. But at the time, come on, dude, he was the right guy, right?
He was the perfect guy for this.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else would have worked out right for this.
Yeah. So a little bit of backstory, like believe it or not, this movie kind of came out of a couple things. It was two things that kind of inspired it, really. 8 o'clock in the morning by Ray Nelson. It was a 63 short story. I know you listened to it and you've heard it. It's really creepy.
The audio version of that was creepy as hell.
Yeah.
But it told a story that John Carpenter used to adapt into this. And then it was adapted into a comic book.
Yep. Alien Encounters number 6. Yeah, it's my area, right? In 1986, Alien Encounter 6, basically it's kind of like what happened then is it took what he heard from the 8 o'clock in the morning, kind of gave him a visual look, seeing it in the comic. He's like, oh, okay, sets the tone, kind of what it's looking like, So essentially he just loved the concept that there's a guy who wakes up one day, metaphorically wakes up one day, and boom, there's aliens. So there's lots of that kind of stuff that led to it. Because look, at the time, Carpenter. A lot of us are older, and we're not going to get into which side of the fence anybody would fall on. Carpenter was just openly critical of Reaganomics, because we were in the whole greed is good era at that point. Yeah. The corporate greed, consumer culture, which by the way we obviously still have the consumer culture still runs rampant, right? So essentially, the aliens were going to take the form of the elite, the wealthy elite that were manipulating society. Conspiracy theories abound, by the way, in these conversations, folks, when we're talking about this movie. That's just kind of what it is.
Oh, God, you could do this all day, just conspiracy theories.
Yeah. I mean, look, think about this again. We're talking about a movie in 88.
Mm-hmm.
Do that math, folks. That is a long, long time ago. That's over 3.5 decades.
Yeah, we're pushing 40 on this thing.
And we're talking about, it talked about social control through messaging. Tilt your head and lean. Class division and compliance by the lower class. And the working lower class rebelling against the elite dominance.
This sounds like a bad car ride to a wrestling show.
I mean, it literally is like, dude, this hits home, and that's kind of why we as a culture, like now, if you watch this movie, like you brought up, it hits completely different than it did back then. Back then, we were like, kick ass, it's like a fight.
Yeah, I was Eric Cartman totally when I watched this movie, and now I'm sitting there like I'm got a tinfoil hat on, Nick. And everything I've read, everything I've looked at, this movie is more relevant now than it was then.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part. I mean, if the fight scene saved the whole thing, the fight scene made me relax. Okay.
Oh, trust me, folks, we're going to get there. We promise you we're going to get to the fight scene. Before we get there, like, you brought it up a little bit earlier. So we're going to get into some of the casting what ifs later in this episode. But Carpenter kind of wanted somebody who wasn't like Hollywood. He wanted like a real tough guy, like a real, like if you saw him, you're like, oh, this guy could kick ass, legitimately. Yes. And I think he felt like there was a part, like if he used somebody too famous, it would lose that a little bit.
I don't think he needed somebody polished. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think he needed a good actor. I don't think he needed Snake Plissken. I think he needed just a guy off the street. And at the time, Piper had that great look. He looked like a drifter. Remember when Hulk used to walk? Bruce Banner used to walk away. I got that vibe from him. Uh,
Well, one of the
he's a
quotes from
construction worker.
Carpenter is that he, like, if you looked at him, he looked like he had lived life, like life written all over him. That was kind of a
Yes.
quote from Carpenter, that he looked like a dude that you're like, okay, that guy's seen some stuff.
Yes.
He had seen hard times, no pun intended with the promo.
Yes.
Now, the other one, Keith David, Carpenter had worked with him on The Thing, and he kind of thought like, hey, his reasonable, relatable, grounded presence and all that kind of stuff would lead to the other offset of, to be the co-star there with Piper.
I thought at times he outshone Piper. I mean, he was a great character.
Oh, well, there's to some of that. I think it is because he was an actor. Like, he was an actor.
Yeah.
So there were moments where, there were some scenes where you're kind of like, all right, he's kind of taking control of this scene or whatever. And again, we're going to tease the fight spot. There's, that's a, yeah. Took about some more details here, just a little bit. They shot this thing in LA over about 8 weeks. So we mentioned it earlier. It's about $3 million budget. Even to the point, like, it was so, like, the budget was still pretty constrained even at $3 million. Carpenter he composed the score himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how wild is that? Like, just saying, like, I'll just do it myself to save the money.
That's a lot of talent. And he used real homeless people for extras in the scenes, because it was a homeless camp, to make them look more relatable. And then he fed the people. That's pretty cool. Roddy Piper thought that was cool. So, I mean, you could tell it was a very gritty movie, and I'm not talking gritty because of what was gritty there, but a lot of times it was gritty because it was rough. It wasn't perfect. Yeah. There were scenes that looked meh.
Yeah. Look, the question was the over-under on the number of times we would tease the fight scene before we get to it completely and fully and have the conversation. But that was part of the production issues. Like, that fight scene that has now become legendary was supposed to be 20 seconds. It ended up being over 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost 6-minute fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's production. That's how, when you listen to enough of these movie podcasts, that's what they get into.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that, became an issue is Carpenter really clashed with the studio on multiple things, but one of them was kind of how to market. It's like, okay, I get it. It's a sci-fi action movie, but you have layered this thing with anti-capitalist, satire. So, like, how are we even supposed to do this thing? So, pretty wild overall.
Then we're going to put a wrestler in it, and we're going to have aliens and stuff. So it's, okay.
Yeah,
we want to make it. I mean, I don't know how much you could get that today, but we'd see.
Well, all right, man. Well, let's get into the category stuff, because that's where everybody's waiting for. And we know we're going to eventually get to the what everybody wants to see, and we're almost there. The 5-star spot award, or the most rewatchable scene, but like I said, we call it the 5-star spot award. The scene in the movie that basically, no matter what spot you get to, if you turn it on and it's on, you're hooked. You're like, I got to see what happens. First one, Nada puts the sunglasses on for the first time.
I love that. Just walking down the street, puts the sunglasses on, shakes his head. Yeah, the fight scene was great, but the glasses on for the first time was my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Well, we'll get there. We got to go through all of them, and then you can pick. I mean, Wyatt's, the whole, basically, why this is one even up for most rewatchable scene, 5-star spot award. It's kind of essentially the turning point, right? This is where the whole narrative of, like, you're trying to figure it out. He puts them on, and it just flips everything. It's like, wait, hold on. So there's commands everywhere. Half the population is aliens, and then his reaction is just, there's some of the funniest stuff. The way he's like looking at, when he goes in there, he's like, you're okay. You formaldehyde, formaldehyde face, stuff like that. That's kind of, that's basically.
Well, how would your reaction be? I mean, I think he did as good a job as anyone could have possibly done in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. other one, I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. Okay, here's the big scene. This is, he walks in, realizes he's like in an oh shit moment, and essentially quotes the line that, honestly, I ask you, how many times in your lifetime have you said this line? Because I've used it ever since in a lot of things.
I've used it, and I've used versions of it. I've used it out of context. I've used it drunk. I've used it time. Yeah, this is probably in the top 10 of my phrases of all time. Yeah. I could list the rest of them. They're probably more profane. But yeah, this is epic.
And then here's the craziest thing to find out, like doing the research on this. He ad-libbed the line. It's not even in the script.
Probably in one take too.
He apparently he had found it. I guess he had a promo notebook that he used to jot things down like this or whatever, and it was in his promo notebook, and he actually decided to use it, and just.
Oh, that's awesome.
But again, him walking in, and then next thing you know, he's just blowing aliens away or whatever. Yeah, that's just a wild one. Next scene up for it is the infamous alley fight. Okay, we're here, guys.
Okay.
Nada versus Frank, the big fight scene. Just again, we talked about it earlier. It was supposed to be 20 seconds. They choreographed this thing. It's become arguably, I won't say arguably, but some people, I would say best, but it's one of the best hand-to-hand fight scenes in a movie ever.
Yep. Well, Frank David did amazingly well for an actor, not a trained fighter. He said, though, that he never felt more secure in a fight scene than when he was working with Piper. Piper showed him how to make it work. He showed him how to do the work. A lot of it was shoot, except for the punches to the face and the groin. So it looked really, really good. And you got to remember, Nick, people don't understand why he wouldn't just put the damn glasses on. Okay? Your friend, did you met only a few times, goes into a bank, kills a bunch of people, is wanted by the cops, is trying to escape, and then he tries to tell you to put on some glasses.
Yeah.
He comes off as a lunatic.
Why? Correct. And,
I'm not going to...
Yeah. And look, this thing's become such a legend and lore part of pop culture of the fight scene. I don't even know how to politically correct say this, what I'm about to say. It's what they call it in the TV show, not what I'm calling it. This thing was parodied on South Park.
Yeah.
The fight scene became, again, their term, not ours. It's the infamous long cripple fight.
Yes.
Between Jimmy and Timmy on South Park. That's how much of a cultural thing this was, that like literally they parodied this thing almost move for move in an episode of South Park decades later.
Yeah. It still is captivating. I watched it twice. Okay, when watching the movie, watched it twice.
Let's be honest. We also have the final showdown at the tower, blah, 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 blah. It's in the running. You go sunglasses. I don't think there's any way anything but the fight scene wins most rewatchable scene, 5-star spot award.
Final showdown is not.
It's in the context. It got, it's in there, but
I know it got votes, but it's depressing as hell. Okay, it's depressing. He wins. It's not as depressing as the ending of 8 o'clock, but it's depressing. He wins, but he gets killed.
Yeah. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie.
Sorry, folks.
If you haven't seen the movie that we're covering and you kind of thought we were going to be discussing everything and you're worried about a spoiler, that's on you.
We're done now. Okay.
No. I'm just saying that's on them for listening to this. Like we're not going to talk about it. So I'm going fight scene. You say sunglasses or do you say the fight
scene? The sunglasses. Okay. I love the fight scene. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I watched it twice last night. I actually paused it to rewind some stuff because I got distracted and I didn't want to miss a single second of it. But the glasses, yeah.
All right. Now it brings us to the Ric Flair He's Still the Man award, or as we like, what's aged the best in the movie. This one was a little more complicated, but I thought the easy one was Piper's charisma in it.
Yeah.
Like, I had seen his, Hell's Come to Frogtown. Like, that, I was like, this one was to me was like, no, this dude could do a movie.
Mhm.
Like, legit, he could be a lead for a movie. And I think this is kind of the one,
I loved it. Rowdy was the perfect man. He didn't lose his. Remember when he used to lose his cool in his promos?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. He didn't go that far off on this one. This was a more. I don't know how to. It was more work. The whole thing was more work. I bought the whole thing. I love the way Piper did everything in this movie. I don't know. I can't describe it. This is something. This is one of the few things I've watched from my childhood that was better at 52. Okay, and
Yeah.
Rowdy Roddy Piper held up the same way.
He's still cool as shit today, and that watching it as a 50 as he was when we were, like I said, I was probably, I was 15 at the time. Yeah, 15 when it came out. So, I mean, give or take. So, yeah. Now, here's the funny one. Again, not getting to the political aspects of it, but the social commentary is pretty strong. Consumerism, media manipulation, class warfare. Oh, I don't know. The elites controlling us with subliminal messages and blah, blah, blah. Kind of hits kind of home more today because at the time we just thought how goofy and silly was the concept.
There was no internet. There was no social media. And influencers are just fascinators like in 8 o'clock in the morning. Is it something that's just changed formats? Is it more present now?
24/7, news channels.
Yeah.
They're just constantly feeding. We talk about how people sit there, whether, again, doesn't matter if you're right or left, they're just feeding you what you want to hear. Like I always tell everybody, if you're watching either one of those channels, they're feeding you what you want to hear. And right.
I've got my mother-in-law and my mother. They both have drastically different political views, and they both watch drastically different channels that feed them exactly what they want to hear. They both watch the news basically all day long, and it's completely different stuff about the same topics. And you get what you want, and you get what they can get advertisers for content. It's no different. The news is no different than professional wrestling. They'll put out a product, hopefully to draw advertisers based on drawing viewers. And if they get people to watch it, they draw more for advertising.
So again, the social commentary may hold up better than anything out of this movie. We'll have to see. Keith David's performance, easy for me to say. Like I get it, man. So Frank, his character in the movie, he's just the sidekick, right? But is he? No, that's his character was supposed to be like the sidekick to Roddy, to Nada. That's kind of what he was billed to be in the movie. That's kind of what, but isn't he kind of like an embodiment of the audience, like in the movie with him, kind of like questioning everything and like what we would be doing, all of those things. He fights back.
Frank was not put in a position where he wanted to interfere until he realized what was going on, until the sunglasses were forced on him. Frank didn't want a part of it. Frank was just trying. He was laid off in Detroit. He had a family there. He was just come here to make some money, try to support his family. He didn't want to be, he didn't want to be wrapped up in all this. He just didn't want to see. He just wanted to do his job, go home to his family. And he got woken up, and then he did what he saw as his duty. It was like his duty as a human. I guess that's what you'd put it.
And I think him being a legit actor, you brought it up earlier about how he did steal some scenes, like from Roddy. Like, and I think that's kind of the why. So, Keith David in that role, I think, does age really, really well. And we mentioned the score. The music's pretty cool. It is very synthesizer heavy, but it's a cool little thing. Jordan Carpenter, he did it himself. I mean, so that was kind it created the weird vibe maybe that I'm thinking, when I think about all those synthesizer, all that synth heavy music. So that held up pretty well in my take. But if you had to choose, what aged the best? What's the Ric Flair?
Piper,
He's still the
Piper,
man or
Piper.
Piper's charisma.
Yeah.
Listen, I would love to give it to Piper. I honestly I cannot get over the fact how the social commentary in this movie just ages up there.
I'm ignoring that. I am trying so hard to ignore that, so I don't wind up.
I'm not getting. Look, we're not picking
group.
sides. I'm just telling you, like, I just think it holds up really well when we talk
believe
about
it or not, if I start asking too many questions about this online, I'm going to start getting ads tailored to what I've been asking questions about.
Yeah.
Because it's like when my wife asked me to Google something, I'm like, hell no, I ain't doing that on my phone.
Yeah, like you can do it on your phone, right?
They'll get me and start sending me ads for that stuff. And it's true. So I'm not going to say social commentary because I don't want nobody attaching any of that to me. I don't got too much tinfoil. Prices are going up. Oh, shit. Social commentary.
Yeah. All right, man, let's jump into the Hulk Hogan That Didn't Age Well Brother Award, or what aged the worst over time. We'll probably pick this up because this is a pretty easy one in my take. The masks.
Yeah.
They just looked really bad.
Yeah. They look better in black and white than they did in color.
Agreed.
They were more foreboding in black and white. You got more of a scary feeling once they put the contacts in and everything was in color.
Because here's the thing: at the time, a lot of things were practical effects. They weren't like the video, the stuff we do now. So I think if you're And I struggle this with a lot of movies when we go back and watch them. I think, like, you kind of go, all right, well, that held up pretty good. That doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, graphically. Now, if you're 15 and you're watching this, you're probably like, that CGI sucks. And you're like, well, that's because it's not CGI. That's
in 1988, though, this was pretty good. The only real thing I got to bash them on the aliens was the alien transporter pad or whatever that was, where they were just walking with suitcases. It's like, fuck, they've been doing this on Star Trek for 60 years. Y'all can't make some beamy rays or something? No, they're just walking. Yeah. That's not impressive. Come on now.
No. Speaking of also not impressive, what aged the worst? Meg Foster's role, Holly, the character Holly in the movie, you're almost kind of like, why?
She was put in there as some kind of device, and this is just my opinion. From when they adapted the original story, they couldn't do all the stuff, so they had to put this character in here too as a story tool.
Wrestling analogy. You know what she was put in here for?
What?
The swerve, bro. The swerve.
Oh, you telling me Vince Russo booked her? Oh,
it seemed like it because, like, dude, she made no sense. I understand, like, but literally at the end, she kills. Spoiler alert! She kills the main character, and that's it.
I thought she was one of the most beautiful women of all time when I was younger because of her eyes. I still can't stop looking.
Okay, here's the problem. I knew that bitch didn't need to be distrusted because of her eyes. I said that.
Like, I can't. But Piper kidnaps her, and he tries to make her put on the glasses, and she goes, "Well, I'll put the glasses on just because it's what you want me to do, and I'll see something just because it's what you want me to do, even if I don't see anything." And I'm like, that's pretty harsh, even for a kidnap victim.
Yeah.
And then it went through all this. They knocked him out of the window. She didn't seem like a weak character. I was getting the story arc. She was somebody who was trapped into a situation. She saw what was going on, but then she wound up in the resistance all of a sudden after being kidnapped by that part was a stretch. Yeah. Like, what was going on? You could make a book about what was going on with her between Piper kidnapped her and the time he killed her. Was she in this all along? Was she one of those people that were down in the tunnels that were collaborating? Okay. Was she just looking at you with those damn eyes? I don't know why she was in there, except as a tool to make the story advance. But it wasn't. I got no emotional bond with her. Anyway.
Again, it was the swerve. She was put in there to be the one to kill him in the end. I think that was it. And I'm like, hey, man, anyway, we'll get into some questions later. I got some questions.
I thought the cops killing him would have been a better idea, but that was just me.
Another thing that aged the worst. All right, here we go. You brought it up a little bit earlier when we were talking about the fight. It's an absolute. We have argued it's the best hand-to-hand fight scene in a movie ever.
Yes.
It's gritty. It's brutal. Like beating us up, blood everywhere. But then you sit there for a second and you asked. So you fought this dude where y'all were busting each other up for like 6 minutes because he wanted you to put on a pair of sunglasses? That's all he asked you. In reality, when you think about it, like, dude, he just asked you to put some sunglasses on. That's all he asked you to do.
Yeah. But the guy, you didn't know him that well, okay? You'd met him on a construction site. Y'all lived in a shanty town. He'd already asked you to, told you about the stuff that was going on over at the church. It was kind of a odd situation. Then he kills a bunch of people, and he comes to ask your help. You won't help him. Then you give him a wall of cash and tell him, just get out of here.
Okay. And then here's Roddy's fault for that side. Roddy can't just like calmly go, put the sunglasses on. If nothing happens, I'll leave you alone and I'll go away. You know what I mean? Like, no, he's got to be like, ah! He's like so aggressive. But like, dude, just, hey, put them on. And if you don't see anything, I'll leave you alone. Like, no, we're literally gonna beat the crap out of each other for 6 minutes for this dude to put on a pair of sunglasses. There's a category we don't do on this show that they do on the Rewatchables. It's like, what's the most 80s thing in that movie? That might be it. Where you just have to naturally. In action movies back then, it was like you just gotta like it's an action movie. Just let
we
it go.
didn't get a montage in this one, which was the massive tool of movies back then.
Yeah.
We just got a fight scene, a brutal fight scene about putting the glasses on. I get the fact that your new friend is a killer and you don't want to put glasses on. I also get the point that he relayed it properly, but you also got to realize he just got dumped out of a trash truck in clothes he never changed for the entire show, Nick.
Yeah.
By this time, after getting dumped out of the truck, he was covered in this putrid green trash looking stuff. So he stank like hell and he wasn't a happy person. And then the guy comes. So all sides, I get a little bit, but yeah, just put the damn glasses on.
Yeah.
Put the glasses on.
Lastly, what's aged the worst is the 80s pacing of a movie. Literally the beginning of the movie, the first 30 plus minutes is him just wandering and working odd jobs, hanging out at construction sites and kind of building up the story. And we're like you said, I mean, I thought this was an alien movie. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are we,
You got a massive undercard on this show.
In our notes, and it was because I typed it for this reason. What it feels like is the match when they haven't, the main event's coming, but right before that they put a match where some younger guys are going to get their shit in, and it goes like 20 minutes. You're like, what are we doing? Can we get to the main event already? That's what this feels like.
And that's changed. Look at it. Look at the way wrestling has changed. The fact that didn't Will Ospreay open the show on that last AEW pay-per-view? I mean, aren't they using every WWE pay-per-view? They start strong. They're what used to be on the undercard is now somewhere in the middle because they start as hard as fast as they can possibly start, and that's people's attention these days.
That's it. It's just the lack of attention span. Like this movie is a rough watch for somebody who's young, who has a short attention span, and they can't is this thing ever going to pick up or whatever, in general. So, what's your pick for what aged the worst? The Hulk Hogan that didn't age well, brother award. Alien mask, Holly's arc, they fought over sunglasses for 6 minutes, or the pacing?
It'd have to be her arc. But then, why did he pick her to kidnap?
I don't know.
Why did he kidnap the woman who was going to kill him later? Why did he kidnap someone in that much power that would infiltrate the resistance group? That person was who got kidnapped. randomly inserted into a story. Her character arc, to me, is what aged the worst.
Absolutely agree. Alrighty, let's the Brock Lesnar Part Timer Pop Award, aka the best heat check performances. Look, we're gonna skip a lot of the notes. This is one of the reasons why you should be a $1 member at minimum on the Patreon to get all the show notes for this. Because I don't want the show to be a 2-hour show. It could be. It's Keith David is Frank. He basically, anytime you brought it up, he's in a scene, he can steal a scene in a heartbeat, all the way to the fight scene or whatever. He's Anyway, Meg Foster as Holly. Listen, you liked her for the eyes, you liked her for the for the look. She was an attractive woman or whatever.
And at that time period, I mean, y'all don't know what it was like back then. Y'all don't know what it was like back then. There wasn't all this internet back then. You got to do what you had to do. What you had to do, man.
Yeah, the street preacher, blind, shouting. He's in the streets, just shouting at the top of his lung. It's kind of like he's our first sign that maybe some things are jacked. He's only in a few scenes in the movie, but here's the thing. That's kind of what this award is. You want somebody who's not like a main character in the movie.
Yes.
So keep an eye on the street preacher.
The strength with that is the character, he's a blind street preacher in a big city, which is like, oh, well, he's a little crazy. And he's wandering around, and the guy has to help him get in the church. And you're thinking, maybe this guy's a little crazy. And turns out he was right the whole time. So it was just another one of those weird context things.
Yeah. Well, his speeches too were like that's kind of what it got it. The aliens, especially the elites. I know that people kind of mentioned those. I'm going to floor a lot of people. My best heat check performance part timer. It's the preacher. I think Frank's probably in it too much to get it because he's not a part timer, quote unquote, in the movie. I think he's in it too much. And there's no way Meg Foster as Holly's getting it. So I'm going to go street preacher.
Because when the street preacher was on your screen, you paid attention to him. Now, the watches, I'd love to have one of them watches, so I could and beep out.
That's something that I think we were going to add down the road. One of the categories on the rewatchables is one thing of memorabilia that you would want to have from the movie. Maybe we need to add that category in going forward.
Because like when I went to my nephew's wedding, I would if I got around all those annoying people, I could be like, boop, and beam out. When my annoying other nephew tries to tell me about his gum disease, I could be like, poop. Because now what I do is I take my daughter's boyfriend and I kind of like kick him behind the knee and run off and leave him to deal with them. So the watch would be a lot more. Yeah, like tag you're it, I'm out. The watch would be a lot handier for me.
So we both go preacher for best heat check, the Brock Lesnar part-time Pop Award. The Dave Meltzer Rumored Innuendo Award, as we like to call it, it's the half-ass internet research area. We've covered some of this, so we'll kind of go through this a little more on the rapid side. Again, this is why you should have the notes, folks. John Carpenter met Roddy right after WrestleMania. He was impressed by everything. He just liked the way he looked or whatever. That's how he got cast in the role. We talked about the bubblegum. I've come to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Was improvised. We already talked about that. The fight scene was only supposed to be 20 seconds, and of course they rehearsed this thing and made it end up being 5.5 minutes. We've talked about a lot of this. We've covered, so that's kind of why we're zipping through. Carpenter's political message. So here's the thing: he actually did get. We talked about how he was really critical of Reaganomics, and he just basically went heavy into it, and then basically took a lot of backlash in the real world about it. We talked about the short story 8 o'clock in the morning, the comic adaptation Nada, and then so we covered all of that. See, a lot of this is cool. Sunglasses used as a metaphor. Basically, it was a metaphor for awakening to social realities, emphasizing how the media and advertising are masking the truth or whatever, So that's kind of the black and white through the sunglasses were supposed to be. You had a clear, unfiltered look into the world or whatever. So,
there was that awake theme. That awake, we sleep, they live, we sleep.
Yeah.
That was a thing that was always through all of the the story to the comic book to the movie. Um, the half-assed internet research I did kind of scared me. So, I mean, it was fun and interesting doing. I was down here captivated for hours, but man, that was a lot. It was a lot of people had a lot of opinions on this.
Minimal use of special effects. Look, he wanted to just make it more relatable, grounded. Like he didn't want to go with a lot of VFX. I think is what they were back then, not CGI. But so that's kind of why he opted to do the masks and makeup and stuff for the aliens. And then of course, we talked about it ad nauseum. But how about this one? I didn't realize this. I didn't realize this apparently had some type of influence on Duke Nukem, the video game. Like they had actually said that the bubblegum line, a lot of that had to influence over that. I just thought that was really weird to like, wait, what? Like a Roddy Piper movie had some influence? And then think about it. When you go back in your brain and think about Duke Nukem, he had on sunglasses.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
It's weird. As a kid, you just play these games, or even as a lot of times you just play games and not realize because you don't have your sunglasses on, I guess.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Unanswerable questions, or we like to call it the Who's the Higher Power Award. Number one, why did Roddy Piper's character, did Nada really need to die? Like, why kill him at the end at all?
Yeah, you'd have had to make sequels of him leading the rebel. You'd have had to make Star Wars basically, and had the whole trilogy of him fighting the Empire or whatever. You'd have had to done more special effects. You'd have had to done more things where this whole, you'd have to explain the aliens. There's your who's your higher power. Okay, you'd have had to gone through and done all of this and explained all of this, and it had to led to more stuff. This was a quick, this was your ending. Piper dies. People wake up. For the story, it had to be that way.
The martyr, he becomes a martyr, etc., whatever. But look, and some people even have put it out there like it could be symbolic that, hey, the truth tellers, they often don't live, the system they're fighting. They usually don't make it, so there is that. Look, we kind of briefly touched on this. Why didn't Frank just put the damn sunglasses on right away? Like just humor him, right? Like
we needed a storyline fight, Nick. It would have been too easy. It really would have been too easy. Nobody wanted to put the glasses on.
Here's the way to look at it, right? I guess. I mean, on one hand, like, why didn't you just put? Because if he does, we don't get the 6-minute fight that lives on as probably one of the greatest, hand-to-hand fights of all times in a TV show. We don't get a South Park parody. We don't get, a lot of other stuff. So, but just for did you just humor him and put him on and be done? Like it couldn't be that. It could, anyway.
I personally would have never went back to find him to give him that, a week's pay. I would have just hidden and never played like I never seen him again. I'd be like, I'm just digging. That's me. I'm digging this hole. I don't see you, Roddy Piper. Nope. You go over there. Nope, not me. Yeah, but then again, I've never been included in a heroic story.
Another unanswerable question. Like I said, we don't find out, right? Like, how far had they actually infiltrated society? Did they have people in government officials? Like, did they have were they running media networks? How high up in the law enforcement did they go? Who are the wealthy of the wealthy? It doesn't,
Who had they all got recruited to work with them? I mean, think about it. Not only cops, they had that guy from the homeless camp. Okay, it was pretty weird. It was pretty weird how they just recruited people, and those people made money. And hold on, they were influencing those, but they were influencers, and this really is scary.
I mean, is there anybody is there any institution out there that's still run by humans? I mean, how big was it? Think about it. There's resistance in LA. Is there anybody else out there? In Chicago, is there any resistance there, or is LA the only one that were smart enough to figure it out, or whatever?
What about Bulgaria?
So, it's just if they took out, the other question was hey, they take out this one signal. Is that the only one? That's another one to ask yourself later. You're like, was it? I don't know.
Well, our concept of lights and TV stations. It was completely different at the time. Because at the time, they wouldn't even put cable TV where I lived.
Yeah.
It was a very different time.
Let's get into the what if Austin took the WCW deal, or as we call, casting what ifs. We touched a little bit on this. Kurt Russell, believe it or not, was the actual first choice to play the Roddy Piper role. By the way, he'd been in Escape from New York, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. John Carpenter did all those, by the way. That's kind of the thing. So it's not like he didn't know Kurt Russell, didn't like Kurt Russell or whatever. But he just literally wanted to go against the grain. Like I said, we talked about it earlier. He just wanted somebody different who had a lived role. By the way, he had already used, Kurt as Snake.
Yeah, why do a Kurt Russell movie again? Why keep using the same actor again? You had to change actors, in my opinion. He was seen as Snake Plissken, which was a great character. You think he really wouldn't have brought Snake Plissken into this scenario? Do you think he could have stopped being Snake Plissken long enough to make this movie?
Right.
There's a lot of similarities enough to maybe change his style.
Yeah. Believe it or not, Arnold Schwarzenegger was up for the role. Like I said, he was coming off of Predator, Commando, Running Man. He had the draw, but I think he was. But here's the thing, too. I'll give you a couple reasons. One, Carpenter's attitude was he was too movie star by that point.
Yeah,
he was too big of a star for this role. I also I'm weird about movies with Arnold in them. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies. Here's the thing, though. I like it when he is a soldier, he's a machine, or whatever. Because here's what I don't buy Arnold as. He is not John Doe down the street.
He's not John Nada.
He's not John Nada, exactly.
He's a Spanish word for nothing. And that's why this is important, because Roddy Piper is every man. He's nothing.
Right.
He's the bottom, and you couldn't have got Arnold Schwarzenegger. He doesn't know how to do that. Roddy Piper knew how to do that.
Yeah,
I just think it's a better choice.
Yeah. I'm going to skip over one of those. Read the notes at the $1 level. You'll find one. The other one I want to get into, Jamie Lee Curtis almost had the role of Harley. Different movie, by the way. Because you know why? Because the character's good. It actually works. She had worked with him on The Fog and Halloween. Again, she kind of had a name or whatever. But apparently in this case, she passed on it. Not him. She passed to do some other stuff. By the way, she made a good choice because just around the corner, she did a movie called A Fish Called Wanda. Did pretty well for herself on that one, by the way.
Yeah.
But Carpenter actually wanted her, the character to have that alien-like, and I think the eyes and, kind of so.
Had Holly's character been done better or worked integrated into the story better, she'd have been perfect.
Yeah.
It was just kind of an aside.
So one of the things in the notes that I wanted to ask you about was I saw some writings about it where it was kind of like, had they made her a little more, I don't want to say likable, but warm and like more personable, approachable, whatever words you want to say, is the ending way more shocking? Because I just felt like she was so cold and off-putting the whole movie that when it happened, you're kind of like, told you that bitch was crazy.
Well, the thing is, this is just my observation like I said, as a 52-year-old man. When he kidnapped her, she wasn't scared. She was basically hostage negotiating herself out of her own kidnapping. So that was a lot of times she was in charge of her own kidnapping. So that was a presence you wouldn't expect from someone at that level. So you already knew something was off with her. She was stronger than what you expected her to be. Then she shows up in the resistance camp, and she's definite. It's just all through the movie. She didn't check out. Even when he was trying to save her, she didn't check out. So,
it's tough.
I just I couldn't bond with her.
Yeah. So pretty cool casting stuff. maybe we'll add one in the future there, because there's a category they do on the other show, that the Rewatchable show, that where you could actually like pick somebody else. Like if you could have picked somebody else to star in one of the roles, you can pick. That'd be cool. So there, sequel, prequel, limited series, or we like to call it, this wrestling needs this match needs a rematch award. So one of the ideas put out there is, because by the way, sequel, dude, if anybody's listening, this is easy. This is a no-brainer at this point. If you can put together a low-budget movie, for this one, I think this isn't. They still live the sequel or whatever, because we're talking, like I said, 30-something years later. They've recovered from the attack from John Nada. They've evolved a little bit over time. There's a second way of control tech. I don't know, like smartphones, social media.
Or maybe they've stomped the aliens out. Maybe they've destroyed the aliens, but the aliens have gone into hiding and they still have ways. There's so many possibilities,
Yeah. Lots of stuff. The prequel, how about we get a story where it's in the 50s and the 60s, how they even came into power to begin with? Because they had to, because by the way, in that time period, TV and advertising still early and brand new.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they come. Because they've spotted us out, like, hey, we can take over them. We can use their own technology against them.
The more I studied about this and the advertising stuff at the time, it was, a lot of it was based on Nazi propaganda techniques that they used and turned into public relations and advertising. They convinced people to think, and there's a lot of stuff they could have done with this. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff they could have done with this.
Yeah. There's a limited series idea that you got to have. Look, that's what the notes are for. So forth and so on. Now let's go into the main event player award. Who won the movie? I think these kind of are pretty good choices in the scheme. So remember, who won the movie can be a bunch of things. Roddy Piper. Obviously, he's the leading guy of the movie, blah, blah, blah. John Carpenter, he's the guy who made the madness of the movie. The fight scene. The studio, believe it or not, for Bay. Hey, listen, look, as much stuff as they push back, they let this damn thing get made.
Oh, yeah.
With all of his quirkiness. So they got all their money back, by the way, through home video, cables, syndication, and all that kind of crap down the road. So even though, like, you're trying to give them some credit. They don't know. They didn't even know what they had, but they, but anyway. So who would be your pick of, like, who won the movie? Is it Roddy Piper, John Carpenter, the fight scene, or the studio?
The studio only won. Now, I was going to take them at first. The studio only won because they just made it. They let it be made. They made $10 million on it. That's probably all they wanted.
Well, no, but then when you add all the back end money from home video, syndication, and all that, I mean, they've probably made millions upon more with that.
Yeah, I don't know. You got John Carpenter.
It's Piper, right?
For coming up
here's
with
my
this.
thing.
I was going to go with Piper too.
I go Piper. I just think it was the breakout role for him. Look, I get it. Some people like Carpenter would go on. He did so many other things. Like there's other things that he did that were off the charts. You give him a bunch of things that he won outside.
Yeah,
Piper wins this one hands down. So, yeah. Anyway. So that's it, man. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on, about the new Real Wrestling format, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. But of course, obviously, Patreon members, you could let us know on Patreon there at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. You got to get this episode early if you're a $5. Remember, dollar level gets you the show notes and all of the TV reviews for the AEW, TNA, WWE shows, and PLE's pay-per-views. $5 level gets you all of the weekly shows early, among everything that you get for $1 level. $10, you get the digital copy of the comic book cover exclusive only to our Patreon members. And the $25 level, all the above, and the autographed 8x10 version of said comic that comes out monthly. I do want to stress, I mentioned this on the other show, you have to be a paying member of that level. there are trial memberships for some of the things, and if you're on your free trial, you don't qualify for that for the digital copy and the autographed 8x10 unless you are a paid member at that level when they are released. Just so you kind of know. Dude, this was fun. I love this movie, and I think it's any parting thoughts about the movie as a whole before we get out of here?
No, like I said, it was if this movie had been made today, it would be a blockbuster, an absolute block. If they did a remake on this, like they're remaking so many things, I think this would be amazingly.
Let me ask you that: how has this damn movie not been remade at this point?
I have no idea, because it would stick out like a sore thumb as far as at the box office. When you see all the movie posters, this one would be the one. This would be they had an epic poster for the time, the sunglasses alien poster. Mm-hmm. That shit was nuts. And we have, and just have Carpenter do it again. I don't know who's your protagonist. Who's Roddy Piper?
Oh, hold on, let's play a game before we get out of here, because like I always talk about going long, but like it's YouTube, it's like Patreon. We don't have a hard time. If you had to pick a wrestler now, and you're recasting it out. By the way, ignore the ones in the notes because I don't think any of those fit. Well, one of them does actually. I take that back. One does. So there's a lot of when you do recasting couch, it's a thing from the Rewatchables episode. There's a couple tricks that they do. Let's say it had to be a wrestler. Who do you pick to fill that role right now? I'm gonna let you go first.
I'm gonna have to ask you a question before I can answer that. Are we gonna make the same gritty type movie? Or are we gonna blow it out with special effects and
you can tell? So you can tell me. That's what I'm saying. Like you can say I want it to be this person, but it would change the tone of the movie. It would be so it's this. It's a little more this with this person in the role. Because I'll give you mine, and then you can see what I'm talking about. What if, I am stealing, by the way, this is in the notes. What if you did Becky Lynch as the star? You do a gender bend and you flip everything to where it's a female is in that lead role and it's her. Now, you could go, hey, I want to go bigger and again, she's more, give her a rougher look like she's been out there. But if it's modern, if you're remaking it today and you make it her, you're modernizing it, by the way, not a political commentary. If you're being in a political commentary type of situation like this, would we be stunned if it was a woman in the lead role?
No, it's 2020. It's 2025. I had to remind
that'd
myself.
Be that's a 2025 thing to do.
Yeah. And when you think about it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with her husband, Seth Rollins. He might, he wouldn't be able to keep that wonderful haircut in this type scene, but I think he would fit in very much with the amount of cruelty he's been able to show and the depth of character he's shown in the last few years. Yeah.
And although his role it was completely cut from the Captain America movie, he at least has some experience on a movie set working.
Punk might be the
hey, dude, there's a great one. Punk, because he actually looks like he could be homeless. if you no, and I didn't mean it like that. You know what I meant? If you kind of like gave him the makeup,
like a bum.
I mean, no, you could make it. You could make it work. So I agree. So yeah, I think those are both great choices, man. Well, again, this is awesome. I had a blast. I love doing these, and hopefully, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Send in your choices for. We kind of want the rules to be if it's Myron and I doing it, it's a movie with a wrestler in it. If it's me and a wrestler or whatever with a wrestler, they can pick whatever movie they want. We just got to be somehow rooted into the wrestling world, some form or fashion. But They Live, if you haven't seen it in a while, I recommend you try out and watching it. I think you won't be disappointed.
If you look around, you can find it for free online.
I think so. Yeah, I think I'm like you. I think I bought it. It was like $3.99 or something like that for the digital copy. I was just like, it'll save me from having to go hunt it down in the future again. Yeah. So again, well, man, that's everything for this week. Anything else that you want to toss in there?
No, I did a good one on this one. I enjoyed this show.
Well, what's the old saying, man? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
Time to tap out.